Welcome everyone to our first speed dating. I'm delighted to introduce to you to our first topic. It's about climate-friendly product design for tour operators. And I'd like to introduce to you our first speaker, Swantje Lehners. She's Managing Director, Projects and Cooperation at Futouris. And she will share with us some insights how tour operators can reduce the emission of their portfolio. Please welcome on stage, Swantje Lehners.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthias. It's great to be here and be your first speed date for this session. I think the good news is that everyone in the tourism industry is very much aware that we really need to reduce the climate impact of our industry. But what's often still missing is the practical knowledge of how to reduce the emissions in the companies, in the daily jobs, when you're working in a tourism company. And to be quite frank, if we want our customers to take more climate-friendly travel decisions, we really have to first develop and offer these more climate-friendly products, because otherwise there will not be a more sustainable choice to make. Honestly, this task, it can feel pretty overwhelming for tour operator employees, especially for product managers who have tight schedules and financial KPIs to meet. If you put yourself in the position of a product manager in a tour operator presented with the task of reducing the climate impact of the offered trips, there will be a lot of questions. How many emissions are actually caused by the trips we are selling, especially in my department? Which of these products actually have the biggest climate impact? So where do I prioritize? And if I know the biggest emission drivers, how can I really develop those products more climate friendly? Then, probably the most important question, what does all this mean for my economic value creation, so for the financial KPIs that I need to meet? And finally, how can I measure if my improvement activities are successful, are effective, and are actually reducing the emissions of my company? During the last year, we had the pleasure of working with different experts and pilot companies on exactly this task to support the product managers in answering those questions and designing more sustainable travel products. We've been working with experts from NIT and Madeker, and we had the big possibility by being funded by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action, so that we were able to create very specific and helpful instruments for product managers to support them on the way towards decarbonizing their portfolio. To start with, we developed an analysis tool with climate-related KPIs to identify these main emission drivers and prioritize activities. And secondly, so that product managers really know what they can do on a practical side to reduce the emissions, we also developed a comprehensive e-learning with helpful checklists and good practices from the industry. So this really provides a step-by-step guidance to work towards the decarbonization of the portfolio. Here you can see the travel emissions tracker, which is our analysis tool for the product portfolio, which you would use in the first step as a product manager. You can, in the system, you can match your product data with the travel emission data from Klimalink, from the emission database. And you can calculate, on the one hand, the total portfolio emissions of your product portfolio for your department or for your entire company. Then you can use KPIs, like emission per person per day, to identify the main emission drivers. And what's helping you with this is a quite easy color coding scheme, so you can already imagine that the red ones here, they are the ones you should watch, and they are the ones you should prioritize for the changes. Then, You also have to keep in mind what those changes would really mean for your financial KPIs, for your turnover, for your profit margins, because that's, of course, a big part of your job as a product manager. Therefore, the second key feature of our tracker is the possibility to compare the emissions intensity of the offered trips with the financial contribution to company success. For this, you can use those automated scatter diagrams here, and you can, for example, identify those trips that build a huge part of your emission figures of your company, but maybe don't provide so much to your economic success. Those are the ones where you should really think about whether to keep them, whether to lower the emissions. So these informations, by putting them into a perspective, into an economical perspective, they really give you the chance to start those discussions in the company based on facts. Then in the second step, you can use the e-learning to gain practical knowledge, to know what you can really do to change the products you are selling for them to become more climate friendly. In the first module of the course, you get a general introduction into climate protection and the relationship to tourism. And in the second and third module, it's really all about practical hands-on knowledge, what you can do to decarbonize your products. The second module is all about destination selection and arrival and departure, and the third is then all about accommodation and in-destination mobility. And the fourth module finally gives you really a step-by-step guidance on how to analyze first your products and then improve them. Here, I brought you some examples from the e-learning today so that you can get a better impression. In all of the modules, there always is a mixture of those facts presentations in a very vivid way, like you can see here for the different emissions for transport options that you can pick. And also there are always interactive elements so that participants can always test their newly applied knowledge in practical examples. Yeah, so we are very happy to provide this comprehensive toolkit to the industry, which really enables product managers to measure and analyze the emissions of their portfolios on the one hand, then set emission reduction targets and define those decarbonization pathways for the product portfolios, identify and implement the potential reduction measures, and finally, of course, also track those improvements that you are making. And last but not least, you can, of course, also use those figures for your Scope 3 emissions reporting, which might also help. The toolkit is now available free of charge from the Futouris Knowledge Hub on our website, and we are really keen to invite all of you to look at it, try it out, tell your colleagues, and become game changers for climate action in your company. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Swantje, for your valuable inputs. You know, many tour operators are actually struggling with the calculation of the climate effect. You mentioned that, especially due to the complexity in their value chain. So what specific advantages would you say does the travel emission tracker offer to simplify this process?
Yeah, I mean, the development of the tracker was really the next logical step on the way to reducing tour operator emissions. The first question that was asked a lot from the industry was, how do I measure my emissions, my product emissions in a comparable and reliable way? And for that, we developed the platform ClimaLink, which is also used here as a basis. And then the next question was, of course, so what do we do with the emission values and the climate footprints now? Do we just inform our customers and let them take the maybe uncomfortable decisions, or do we actually use it to create more climate-friendly products? And luckily, the Futouris members were really, really keen to also do the second, to really take on the responsibility and implement the direct climate action. And this is where the tracker comes into play, because it's an instrument not only for measuring, but also for really analyzing in depth the portfolio and seeing where to prioritize. Even more, it's really putting the emissions in direct relation to the economic value creation, so that the product teams can really have a found decision-making basis there.
Swantje, I think you would agree with me when I'm saying that measuring and also analyzing is not enough. So it's about making real changes. So does the travel emission tracker also provide recommendations on how companies can effectively reduce their emissions?
Well, the tracker is really the first step that gives you a basis for setting those priorities and for taking decisions. But of course, to take the climate action, you really need to know more about the practical possibilities you really have. And therefore, we decided to focus on, as the second substantial part of our toolkit, on this e-learning and on the really practical measures that you can take. And in the e-learning, you will really find very concrete tips. For example, when you're looking at arrival and departure, how you can opt for the mid-haul travel, for example, for train options, rather than offering a flight by default. But also if flights are impossible to forego, where you can really find lower emission possibilities with regards to flights. Or for example, if you look at the accommodation element, you can of course include preferring partners that have a sustainability certification that has a specific focus on climate action, or you can really ask your hotel partners whether they implemented measures like solar panels to generate their own regenerative energy. So there are a lot of measures, really concrete hands-on measures in the e-learning, which we are very glad to provide this vast hands-on knowledge to the industry. And we are sure that not every tip will be something for every company. So it's really about selecting the ones that are relevant for your tour operator, depending on your size, depending on your target customers. But we are happy that our pilot companies, they agreed with us that there's really something in it for all of the companies. And so please do try it out and take your own impression. We would really love that.
Great, Swantje. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you.
And now I have the honor to hand over to our next moderator for the next session, Hilary Rande, partner of Thinking Hospitality. And it's about cool cities. Thank you.
Hello again from me. I'm Hilary Rand, partner at Think Hospitality. Many thanks to Matthias and Swantje. It is now my pleasure to welcome to stage Dr. Ellen Madeker, head of Airbnb policy for DACH, Central and Eastern Europe at Airbnb. And she will present Cool Cities, Greening Urban Spaces with Airbnb. So welcome to the stage, Ellen.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome to the talk on cool cities. I'm waiting for my presentation to come up. There it is, cool cities. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all feeling the effects of climate change. The urban heat island effect has been researched, documented and described pretty well in recent months and years. Cities face particular challenges. They have a large CO2 footprint, and they heat up considerably in summer. And as a society, we have to ask ourselves, how do we want to cool them down? What are possible solutions? And at Airbnb, we do care about cities. First of all, because cities are places that many hosts call home. And then secondly, because cities are places that guests on Airbnb love to visit. We think that cities continue to be magnets for visitors. So we knew we wanted to do something to help cities become greener and support them in becoming even more climate resilient. But to be very honest, we had no idea how to do this. We're a tech and a tourism company after all. We are not experts in greening spaces. So we looked for partners, and we found them. We found Die Grüne Stadt, the Green City, in German, a non-profit foundation that brings together experts in urban greening. and we found Lorenz von Ehren, a traditional tree nursery based in Hamburg. We looked for a city to pilot our project, and we found beautiful Hamburg. Why Hamburg? So first of all, Hamburg has a reputation as one of the top 10 greenest cities in Europe. And then there is an ongoing collaboration between Airbnb and the city of Hamburg, which started early. Back in 2018, Hamburg started to moderately regulate short-term rentals as the first city in Germany actually introduced a digital user-friendly registration system for hosts. And we supported this from the start as a platform. And then, as many of you might know, that Hamburg has a remarkably engaged civil society, and we have a super engaged host community in Hamburg. And together with our partners, we organized Coole Orte für Hamburg, an urban greening competition, to find the perfect project, a cool place, a climate-friendly, innovative greening project in Hamburg. And we decided on a couple of criteria for applications. First of all, we looked for a public place, accessible for the community, for the citizens of Hamburg, in the city center, a project that can still launch this year, so we can actually see it, touch it, feel it, and a project that could be realized with our funding. With 250,000 euros that we promised to the winning project in Hamburg. So with all this, we launched our competition last year in November, and we were surprised actually, and also a bit proud that we went viral right away in Hamburg. Our call made it even to the info screens in the tube stations in Hamburg. Here you can see Jungfernstieg. And this is a picture from December 2024. We put together a jury of experts to make the project as democratic as possible. These experts included the inner city coordinator of Hamburg, someone from the Hamburg Authority for Environment and Climate, somebody from Hamburg Tourism, the Hamburg DMO, somebody from Futouris, just speaking here on stage, and of course a stakeholder from the Green City Foundation that helped us to set all this up, and somebody from the tree nursery. We received 13 strong applications. A jury meeting was held in February, and in a 4-hour session, these experts discussed feasibility, project briefs, finance, maintenance plans, and so on. And they identified a winner. And the award ceremony was held last week in Hamburg. Can you imagine a better place for an award ceremony? Here we are at the greenhouse of the tree nursery in Hamburg, Lorenz von Ehren. And the winner is this square here in Hamburg, Großneumarkt, and the dedicated team behind its greening initiative. On that team, there is the local neighborhood management, landscape architects, and the community. And the place you see here is an inner city square in Hamburg with lots of restaurants, a weekly market, and there are trees, as you can see, but people do miss more green, and they miss places to sit on them. So here we thought we can help. So here you can see the sketches of what is planned. The money will be used to unseal the ground, to plant more greenery, and to set up benches for the Hamburg community to sit. So Spring is almost there, and we're very much looking forward to seeing the first results. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for this inspiring presentation. So let's dive into a few questions now. On our first question, the transformation of, and I'm going to get this right, Großneumarkt, is quite striking. How do you ensure long-term maintenance and community stewardship of the space beyond its initial funding? Because I think that's a really important question.
Great question, because it's indeed super important to think of that early in the process.
Yeah.
We were also made aware of this by our partners, namely the Tree Nursery and the Green City Foundation. So we built it already in the application criteria. So one of these was actually you had to submit a maintenance plan to make sure this is being thought of. And Großneumarkt actually submitted a 4-year maintenance plan that very well explained how this square and the greenery is going to be taken care of in the coming 4 years.
So 4 years was the timeline?
4.
Gotcha, thank you. What role do Airbnb hosts and guests play in supporting these sustainability efforts? And are there opportunities for them to get involved in urban greening initiatives?
Yes, in short, yes. So we very much care about our community, the host community. We're very community driven. We learn a lot from them. We get a lot of feedback. We are in constant exchange. So for us, from the start, it was very important to involve them in the project. The community is organized in host clubs, and we have a strong host club in Hamburg. And the leader of this host club was involved from the start and active in the jury. And he gets the community together regularly, they communicate a lot, and we want to make sure that we involve them now going forward. We're thinking of, planting actions, events around the square where we can involve the community and the citizens that live in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ellen. And we are on to the last question. If city planners, policymakers, or tourism professionals in the audience want to collaborate on similar projects, what advice would you give them?
So what we learned is there is no one-size-fits-all approach. You really have to dive in. You need the city on board early in the process, and you need them because they explain you things, how the city works, the neighborhood management, what places are suitable, and then also how to navigate the bureaucracy, because that's actually not that easy. So it's easy to announce things, but then the work really starts when you actually spend the money and try to get things right. So really build a network of diverse experts and make sure you get this expertise in.
So expertise is the key, absolutely, and timing. So I think that's great. Thank you, Ellen. We're just 1 minute down, so thank you so much for a great presentation and insights. And I will now hand it over to the next moderator, Dr. Xavier Font. Thank you.
Right, what a great afternoon we're having here. So many interesting sessions to learn about. And we're next going to be inviting Cornelia Rutischauer, who's a team leader on corporate partnerships at myclimate. There's a lot of changes that have been happening in the sector around carbon and measuring carbon and insetting and offsetting and all sorts of things. I think there's nobody better than Cornelia to tell us what's been happening over the last year and what are the new products that they are launching. So without any further ado, Cornelia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Xavier, for this introduction and welcome to the stage. As a tourism enthusiast, I clearly see how tourism drives the beauty of our planet, but on the other side, it also contributes to its destruction. So that's the question I have for Xavier, but also for you in the audience. What if every trip helped to protect the future instead of harming it? And this is because the place where Cause We Care takes action. But let me first introduce myclimate, who we are. We are a non-profit foundation based in Switzerland, founded in 2002. We have subsidiaries in Germany and Austria and focusing on climate protection. Our aim: avoid carbon emissions, reduce, and take responsibility for our emissions. So let's have a look on our program, 'Cause We Care. A program, by the way, what we have built, or what have the foundation based on our experience of more than 20 years working together with the global tourism industry. With 'Cause We Care, tourism companies don't just reduce their carbon footprint. They turned climate responsibility into climate action, involve their guests and use the funds for sustainability efforts, and create a tangible advantage. And in short, 'Cause We Care makes climate action simple, financially viable, and impactful. So, how does it work? 'Cause We Care underlines a simple yet impactful mechanism. Most important, the guest gets the decision while booking an overnight stay to make a climate contribution by a small amount. With this small amount, when he decides, I want to give this small amount, he makes this mechanism active. And the company then matches this contribution, assuring that the company will invest in the same amount into sustainability. So then, in this fund, in this example, we have €4. This fund will then get divided. 25% goes in a climate protection project. This is to take responsibility for the unavoidable emission and to create an immediate impact. The other 75%, they go directly into the fund or into sustainable actions of the company itself. To move forward, for example, with renewable energy, e-mobility solutions, or organic food offerings. The result? A win-win-win. With climate protection that makes a real difference. Increased customer loyalty by engaging guests and meaningful actions. And last but not least, economic efficiency. To date, I brought some Swiss figures with me. Numerous businesses have joined 'Cause We Care, providing that responsible tourism is possible and profitable. And now we have a digital platform, brand new. And this makes it even easier that more businesses can take part of 'Cause We Care. It's user-friendly, it's for all businesses and sizes within the tourism industry, and it contains tools for carbon footprinting, for a measurement database to plan measurements, and also some communication tools and many more features. So it's an all-in-one tool for real impact. With that, let's make tourism a successful part of the solution. And if you're ready to be part of this movement, scan this QR code over there, and let's make tourism truly sustainable together. Thank you.
Cornelia, thanks for that. The first time you told me about this, I was thinking, this is great, right? I mean, why would any hotel not be interested in this? You facilitate the system, half the money's for them, half the money goes to you guys. There's no commitment. It's not like you're adding it to the price, so people can make a choice. So my feeling was, surely every hotel in Switzerland is now a member.
Not yet, but they will come to that. But first of all, sustainability needs to be recognized as a success factor first. And many hotels hesitate to hesitate. So sometimes they fear that the guests resist. Others believe it's complicated and it needs some other efforts and it needs money. But when they have done the first step and understand that this could be a solution, it could be also it's also something that is not a burden, then the engagement comes clearly with it.
I think you're avoiding my question there, okay? I think what we're really seeing here is that hotels are much more reticent and they'll just find themselves coming up with excuses, like rationally, they should be members, right? You offered them money, you made it easy for them, but they're not quite there yet. And this kind of brings me back to a different question. Like organizations like yourselves are always in that difficult situation of saying, we want to create new products, we want to make it easy for the consumers, we're assuming the consumers are rational and the businesses are rational, and then they're not. And then so you get criticized because your products maybe are not perfect, but on the other hand, the consumers are not even engaging with a really simple product. Like to me, this just makes perfect sense. It's more a reflection, right? But how do you deal with that situation where you're always kind of getting criticism from every side?
Very good question. First of all, carbon protection project compared to all other solutions is the only solution which creates immediate impact. Of course, we have to avoid carbon emissions. We have to reduce our carbon footprint. But for that, we take time. We need time for that to implement measures. So, with the carbon protection project, you have an immediate solution. But of course, you have right. Not all carbon protection projects are equal, and the market needs stronger regulation. And that's why myclimate always foster and has always been committed to the highest quality to the highest quality standards, and also doing an own due diligence process. But still, as you maybe have read, we advocate for more transparency and also more credibility. And even said, all those projects, they are already heavily controlled. But sure, there is in every project there is some room for improvement, and that's the reason why we really move forward into more quality and so on.
That's life, isn't it? That's how it is, you know, all continuous improvement. And you have been one of those organizations that have been promoting the ADOMO legislation, which is why you're very welcomed here. But can I also say, before we had the language of climate neutrality, and of course now we know that neutrality is not something we can talk about, or being net zero company, and now we just talked about climate protection, but the product hasn't changed. Is this not just old wine in new bottles? The language has evolved, but for a good reason. Climate neutrality gives a wrong impression. The reality, climate action, is about avoiding, reducing, and taking responsibility for carbon emissions. And this doesn't need a claim or a label, because it's not a question of a balance sheet. It's an important part of immediate impact and climate action. So that's why we shift the language, and this shift reflects actually a stronger commitment in meaningful climate action. Thank you very much, Cornelia. We could spend much longer talking about these things in here, but we're coming to the end. Thanks for your time. And what we'll do now is we'll hand over to the next moderator, which is Willy Legrand.
All old wine in new bottles, that really worries me, Xavier. Anyways, good afternoon. Thank you so much. Dedicated ITB guests we have in front of us. Let me tell you, you have to stick around because you'll get a lot of knowledge for your money in the next few sessions. But for now, we're moving on with some groundbreaking sustainability solution transforming our industry. I'm really thrilled to welcome Mr. Nico Nicolas, CEO and co-founder of Zeero Group. Now, Nico will talk to us about the Zeero Energy's climate solution. Nico, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, I'm Nico, and as Willie just said, I'm the co-founder of Zeero Group. And I'm going to take you through a little presentation to introduce what we're doing as the first end-to-end solution from Zeero 360, which is our corporate travel measurement system for corporates. So we do over 1,000 corporates. That's directly connected into systems so we can pick up travel data and give carbon reporting. Trees for Travel is where we started by planting trees and backing them up with carbon credits. And then we also have Trees for Events. But we wanted to take things further. And we have heard so many people saying, sustainability, you've got to pay money for it, you've got to pay money, we're asking you for this, we're asking you for that. So we decided to look at sustainability from a different angle, where we actually look into making sustainability something that everybody can win from. Through our holistic approach, we actually cover up to 16 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and I'm going to take you through what it is. So what Zeero is, it's actually a collaborative platform. So it means that we can actually do JVs together on projects that actually deliver real results. We work through microclimate contributions, and we always issue what are called share points with every micro contribution, which means that everybody becomes not only responsible for the future, but they actually have a share in the profitability of what we're actually creating here. So through our holistic renewables technology and also our nature approach, we really can do the right thing together and in a great way where it becomes an asset on your balance sheet. Our first project is actually focused around sustainable fuel production and waste management. This actually is something which can be replicated around the world. And what it is it's a system called hydrothermal liquefaction. We're using a patented technology, and we take basically municipal bio-waste, so it can be sewage, it can be food, it can be anything else, but one of the things that municipalities have a huge problem with, costs them a lot of money, and we take that through the hydrothermal liquefaction, and it turns that waste into biofuels in a matter of minutes. It takes 15 minutes. We can then take the bio crude to an existing refinery, and that can then be refined into 4 different grades of fuel, which include sustainable aviation fuel, biodiesel, gasoline, blah, blah, blah. But we also now have a new module that we can actually add on site that avoids the necessity for a refinery. That means that we can actually produce from sewage to biodiesel on site, and that means we can use it for electricity generation. And so we're actually combating 2 things. So we're actually helping the waste management for municipalities, but we're also giving them green electricity. Or diesel. They can use the diesel for vehicles, etc. Out of 100 tons of bio-waste, this is roughly a city of between 25,000 and 100,000 people, towns. So small towns are really ideal. But we get 25% aviation fuel. We get biodiesel, gasoline, and heavies. Heavies are used for shipping and marine. Berlin, for example, could produce 3.8 million litres a day. So this will not completely solve the world's issues, but we can see that this is going to be a huge contribution. And because we're selling those fuels and we reinvest the money that we get from those fuels, we can actually snowball the work we're doing. The other thing is that our fuels are actually coming out at the same price or even lower than fossil fuel, which is the first time that's been done. So our plants are modular. So the plants we're working with, the technology that we're working with, is modular plants. And they can be bolted on as much as you need, as many as you need, or as few as you need. And you can replace them afterwards with a larger plant if necessary, and then you can move them to a new location. So they don't require planning permission or anything else. We can put anything in them, even clothing, as long as it's bio-clothing, so cotton or anything like that. And then we compress this mixture under a huge temperature, huge pressure, and we turn it into the biocrude, and we get phosphorus, which is for fertilizing crops, and biogenic gases, which can be used for any other burying carbon or whatever else. And then we have the choice of using biodiesels or SAF. We also give a contribution to nature with every contribution, with every climate contribution that we receive. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, so I do have to speed up a bit. 4 billion people every year. These machines last for 30 years. So in 1 year, each machine would basically decarbonize 10,000 kilos a day, and 400 units would produce 750 million liters of biofuel. And it's something that is sustainable and circular. If we did it in 600 cities, we could decarbonize global emissions by 20%, replace 20% of fossil fuel, and everybody shares it. So it means that by small investments, we can all actually benefit from that. And that's that. So thank you.
It's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's go through a few questions. So the potential is amazing. You've just seen on the last slide, or second to last slide, we're talking about a reduction, a potential reduction of 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions. We've heard this morning tourism at 8.8%, the whole industry. So it's a big lever. It seems to me like it's one of those major levers to pull. You've mentioned 600 cities as well, so I'm just curious, I'm trying to get my head around the tech behind this, and I'm sure the audience is as well. Can you explain a little bit about the replicability, the scalability of this tech across different regions, across different infrastructure? Again, I'm not a waste management in municipal waste, I don't know so much how it works, but what are we talking about in terms of what's needed at the destination to make that happen?
Well, first of all, it wasn't my expertise, waste management.
Right, okay.
So we were very lucky to be introduced to this, and our background is all about sustainability. But one of the things that has always been a challenge for me has been turning it from being something that we're asking people for into a shared profit center asset. So with the 600 cities that you've mentioned, these are cities with over 1 million people. If we put these plants onto those cities, we can produce roughly 20% of the fuel that is required globally through actually getting rid of their waste. So you've got such a huge benefit by doing this to every single corner of the world. I mean, you don't need to have those cities. We could go further. Towns, 25,000 people, towns.
Okay, so what are the barriers that are possible that you'll be facing now? Are we talking about regulatory barriers? Are we talking about the infrastructure? Are there any barriers, and where are you with this project at this point?
So we've got the first plant is owned by the manufacturer, which we're looking at investing into. And the barriers for setting these up, it's actually very simple, because when we put it into a sewage farm or wastewater works, it's actually considered as part of the pumping material. The machines are CE certified. All of the components are CE certified, so they're safe to be used. You don't need any special insurances. You can train local staff to run them. So there aren't really any barriers. I mean, it's just, the financial side is where we're hoping to get the collaboration of the industry to recognize that, by $1 a booking or something, or €1 a booking, they can actually, together, we can actually make it work.
All right, so this was actually the segue I wanted to ask you in terms of the tourism sector, because the project seems to me very much about the local authorities to get them on board, but you're going a little bit further because you're asking a participation from the tourism industry. Can you go through this a little bit more to explain how that works?
Well, we go through what we call triple funding. So we ask for the local government to give 1/3 of the funding. We ask for VC capital to give 1/3 of the funding, and we want 1/3 of the funding to come from travel contributions. And we believe that because there are a lot of locations where you have a lot of tourism, over-tourism, okay, and people don't like it. The places are not built to handle the waste that we leave. So if we can actually clean up that waste and use it for something that's positive that actually even helps decarbonize, then tourism should really contribute. And it also gives a really good message. It sort of like says, we've come to your island, or we've come to your city, and look what we've done. And so hopefully people will be more welcomed.
Yeah. Do you see a potential collaboration with myclimate we've just seen?
I don't know. I mean, I've never had that conversation with myclimate. I mean, I guess we probably would be competition.
This is speed dating. We just happen to be the two of us on stage. But I mean, Cornelia was just saying maybe after this.
We should come back up.
Yeah. what's sort of when we think about the hospitality sector, but the tourism sector, we often think in terms of renewable energy. I don't know, photovoltaic panels, solar water heaters on top of the buildings, etc. So that type of energy, perhaps windmill in the park. How does that? What's the difference between those type of technology and yours? Are we competing here, or are we just trying to do a full transition using everything we can?
Well, first of all, solar and wind don't deal with waste.
Right.
Okay, so they're not actually sorting that part out of it.
Yep.
The other thing is that, I don't know if you noticed, but if you're running your house off of solar panels every day for roughly 12 hours, okay, you won't have any power unless you've got batteries. Same thing with wind. This runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
All right.
So
convincing enough. Thank you so much. This was Nicolas. Thank you so much, Zeero Group. Thank you so much. It's great to have you. So that concludes the speed dating sessions, but those guests are going to be around here. Thank you so much, Nico, and to everyone for that speed dating session. It's the first time we do this at ITB, and it's a good way to figure out whether this works. But I like to pass on, and again, great session coming up, so don't go away. I'd like to pass on back to Katie. Katie, the floor is yours. Thanks very much.